You're with Julian on the Brown Notes and Gina Rinehart devouring herself, a title which will make more sense towards the end. Vincent Namatjira's painting at the National Gallery of Australia of Australia's richest woman has been seen by millions around the world, appearing on CNN and the BBC, and getting the attention of Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon. If Gina Rinehart was trying to make sure no one saw a portrait of her, recent moves have had the opposite effect, the Streisand effect as we know it. Last week's media, including Guardian Australia, reported Australia's richest woman had demanded the National Gallery of Australia remove a portrait of her. The painting of the artist by the artist Vincent Namatjira is one of numerous portraits on display in Canberra. The NGA rebuffed her demands, and news of her request has meant the portrait has been seen by many more than it should have. Rinehart has fallen victim to the Streisand effect, which is when Streisand asked Google Maps or something to not show a picture of her house, and everyone Googled it and just spammed it everywhere. It's gone global. It's gone massively global this week, just based on Google searches for it. So people have come forward, like some billionaire bootlickers at Swimming Australia have come forward, and some people will tell you, that Gina Rinehart is, popular with, I guess, the 2GB crowd or something like that, but an awful lot of us despise her, everything about her, everything that she represents, and are enjoying this. So if you haven't seen the portrait, please look it up. Gina Rinehart portrait will do it for you. The thing that she is obviously most angry and terrified about in her cocooned world of opulence and untouchability is it so clearly, accurately captures her soul. It so obviously captures her character. And when we say how it captures her ugliness and hideousness, none of us are talking about her physical appearance. We're talking about her inner self. And it so obviously captures it. It's a brilliant portrait. And it skewers her as well, like the best satirist could. Gina's not exactly a likeable person in my eyes. She is touted as this brilliant businesswoman, but really virtually all her wealth has come from the mining rights. Her father, who once suggested Australia's Aboriginal problem would come from them breeding themselves out, wasn't exactly the nicest man, which led to her spat with Netball Australia, where they said they didn't want to be sponsored by somebody like that. Whose father had very negative opinions, famously so, about Aboriginal Australians when they had Aboriginal Australians playing in the team. Funny that, isn't it? And obviously the Ben Fordhams of the world and everyone came forward to sort of defend her. Well, I laughed and celebrated Netball Australia for the position they took, an honourable, moral one. But she's really made virtually all her money on the mining prospects at John Hancock. What was her dad's name? Is it John Hancock? Set up in the 60s, mainly. He set up these mining prospects, mainly in WA in the 60s, and basically she has lived off the proceeds of that with doing other businessy stuff. Lang Hancock, of course. Lang Hancock, who had very appalling views on Aboriginal Australians. And a lot of people have said, she shouldn't be blamed for that. No, I don't. I blame her for her own appalling opinions. She's the one that's been out there saying stuff like bemoaning that Africans can get paid $2 a day and Australians can't be competitive. Housing virtually every right-wing populist politician she can, from giving that cheque to Barnaby Joyce, Hooly Dooley. What a moment that was, to actually flying Peter Dutton in recently on a private jet for her birthday for 2 hours. She has a huge political agenda. She is something like 94% of the funding for the Institute of Public Affairs, which masquerades as a body of thinkers, but is actually just promoting right-wing news and then gets picked up by right-wing news outlets and offered up as views of the world. She virtually funds the whole thing. She's not a nice person. She's not a good person. Worst of all is she has spent virtually her whole life taking her family to court over money. She took her dad over to court over money to try and get his empire off of him, and he ended up offering enormously disparaging remarks about her towards the end of his life. She went after her stepmom, and then when her father had actually said that his grandchildren should inherit the family business, one of the biggest in Australia, if not the biggest in Australia, when they were 21 years old, she fought them in court for like 20 years. I think it's still going on. She refused to honour her father's wishes to hand. He willed that to them, to her children, and she fought them in court to stop them ever getting it. And in all likelihood, stop them ever getting it because she was so rich that it's impossible to overcome such incredible wealth. She's an awful person on every level, and that is so beautifully captured in this portrait. It's one of the best portraits I've ever seen. But the reason I did this piece, apart from an opportunity to laugh heartily in the face of Gina Rinehart, is the amazing likeliness of the portrait to Goya's famous picture, Saturn Devouring His Son. You look at the eyes in both, and you cannot tell me that the artist involved is not referencing Goya's enormously famous horror painting, one of the most horrific paintings that's ever been made. Sometimes between 1820 and 1823, Francisco Goya painted a painting named, after he died, Saturn Devouring His Son, which is one of the most appalling images you'll ever see. Look at the eyes in both portraits. They're identical. Now, you can't tell me, given the visual representation, that they aren't connected, given she has had these enormous battles with her own children, and the interpretation of the painting sees it as a reference to the Roman myth in which Gaia foretold that one of the sons of Saturn, Kronos, would overthrow him, just as he himself had overthrown his own father. You're telling me that these paintings aren't related? To prevent this, Saturn ate his children moments after each was born, eating the gods Vesta, Ceres, Juno, Pluto, and Neptune. His wife Ops eventually hid his sixth child and third son, Jupiter, aka Zeus, on the island of Crete, deceiving Saturn by offering a stone wrapped in swaddling. He literally ate his own children to avoid being overthrown by them. How analogous is that? I think this artist has done an amazing job in not only seeing the cruel, awful, dark heart of this awful woman. Vincent Namatjira, you've done an amazing work, but I seem to be the only person that realises that you're referencing Goya's immortal Saturn Devouring His Son.